Hi, this is FM Waltercast from Wisespace Chess Academy, and today we're going to look at a system called the Catalan. It's a very dangerous system against the black pieces, and it should be a very interesting game that we're going to look at that should demonstrate the power that lies in the Catalan when you play it right. So we go straight into the game. I was white, and this is a game that happened in Bleachers, a Blitz game, 3+0, and my opponent is called Get Chess. So um, the game went d4, d5, the basic opening, and it was more like a queen's gambit. He played c6, and the Catalan position appeared on the board with the g3, knight f6 setup. So my opponent captured the c4 pawn, which is typical of what black sometimes would play. And of course, that is a natural trade in this position. So I give up the pawn on c4 and go for some dynamic stuff in the center of the board. So I play bishop g2, opponent played bishop f5, castles, d6, knight c6. Everything is pretty standard at this moment. Nothing very unique. This is typical theoretical stuff at this moment. So my opponent got knight d7, of course, trying to hold onto the pawn on c4. So I play knight d2. Now, knight d2 is a very interesting move because it kind of I just want to get back the pawn on c5, and my opponent is really trying hard to hold on to it. So when he played knight b6, I play a5. f5 kicks off the knight, forcing it into the best square, which is actually d5, which my opponent played. And here comes the critical point of the game. Knight takes c4. Now, there are very many ideas in this position. Black has a choice whether to capture knight times c3 or bishop times c3. In either case, is winning a pawn. And I think he chose the wrong one. It was knight times pawn, knight times knight. And when I captured pawn times c3, and now the bishop is attacked by the pawn. So black has a critical decision to make in this position. Either to retreat with the bishop, maybe to bishop e7, which I think is the only other move, or to actually capture the pawn. Now he chose to capture the pawn, and I think which was a very big blunder, but maybe the best move on the board at the same time. So I coolly just played bishop a3. Now notice that the black king is cut off and cannot castle. So that means there is trouble on the board. Black again has a critical decision to make. Do you capture the pawn in the center with the bishop or with the queen? And you have to really decide what to do in that position. So what black did, captured the bishop. Now, I played knight d6 check, and that attacks the king. Now notice that the king cannot move to f8, cannot move to e7, and so he had to play a very unnatural move, king d7 right in front of the king, which is the only way to prevent the queen from being lost in the game. So he played king d7, and I coolly played knight and d7, attacking the queen, defending the pawn on a5, and yet again, the bishop on a1 is still hanging. So he played queen c7, which I think again is one of the only moves possible in the position. And I just coolly played knight c4 check. So the king goes back to e7. I do not capture, just look at this again. I do not capture the bishop with the queen because I need the queen to be in a more active square of a4. And that's exactly where I play the queen. Now he still has no time to do anything because right now there's a double threat, bishop times c6, queen times c6, and both of them are actually threatening to win the rook on a8. So he has no time to react. So he has to play rook c8 as the only move to defend that position, and then I coolly capture the bishop on a1. Now, after I capture the bishop, notice that he still has disharmony in his pieces, and the position is a bit cramped. So he played knight d7, trying to force an exchange of the knight to reduce some pressure, which is the usual thing that you want to do in a position that is getting really tough. So I played rook c1, the best move on the board. So now undermining the fact that if he captures the knight on c5, then my rook will capture the knight back. On c5, another pressure on c6 becomes too much, and still he cannot castle. If he tries to do that again, he will lose the queen due to a discovered check, rook on c6. And the queen will fall off the board. So he now became desperate and played knight b8. And I played e4, a very interesting move, blocking the bishop temporarily, but kicking away the bishop completely from protecting the b1 square. So I played d5, which is not the best move on board, but again, creating so much pressure in that center. So he plays e5 to undermine the bishop completely, but guess what? the idea of e4 now comes into play, because now I can play the rook to b1. And with the rook on b1, the threat here is a very dangerous threat. Rook b7, and now the queen is being kicked off the board. And everywhere it goes, there'll be a discovery from when the knight moves, and the queen will be hanging on either d8 or d6. So in light of that, he plays knight d7, and now here I coolly play knight a6. Notice that if I had played the rook to here, then he had an interesting tactic to take the knight, and I wouldn't gain so much. I'll still be slightly better in the position, but I wouldn't gain so much from the massive position that I had. So I played knight a6, hitting on the queen, and the queen is forced to go to d8, and now that is when I capture this pawn. And now, of course, everything falls apart in this position. He moves the knight to f6. I just coolly attack the queen with the rook, and now he's forced to sacrifice the queen, and later on he just resigned. So this is a typical way of demonstrating the power of the Catalan. I hope to see you in the next video 1 week from now. Bye-bye.